The purpose of Wealth Talk is to educate, inform, and hopefully entertain you on the subject of building your wealth. WealthBuilders recommends you should always take independent financial, tax, or legal advice before making any decisions around your finances.
Welcome to episode 140 of Wealth Talk. My name's Christian Rodwell, the Membership Director for WealthBuilders, and I'm joined today by our founder, Mr. Kevin Whelan. Hello, Kevin.
Hi, Chris. Good to be with you again, and so pleased to be welcoming new members into the Academy. It's always a joy when people decide to vote with their feet, choose wealth over choosing to stay the same. And I appreciate their courage, but we're there to help them. We'll be there every step of the way. So as we've helped our guest today, Chris, haven't we?
We have indeed, yes. So definitely warm welcome to everyone who joined the Academy, and thanks for everyone who joined our webinar last week. That was lots of fun. And you're right, we're kicking off again today with another member spotlight. And this member is one we know well, Mr. Steve Clark, who had joined us as a founder way back in 2019. And as we know, Kevin, Steve is a creator. He did his wealth dynamics and he kind of had that light bulb moment. Oh, this is why I'm always coming up with new ideas. And he had switched from a few different businesses, but he's certainly settled on the right one now by the looks of things.
Yes, and we'll kind of debrief how we managed to discover this. But as usual, we like to listen to the story, don't we, Chris? And then try and see if you can spot the wealth lessons that perhaps could apply to you. So even though Steve's story is unique to him, there will be lessons for you to take note. So let's see how many of those that you pick up.
Yeah. Okay. Let's head on to our conversation with Steve Clark. Steve, welcome to Wealth Talk today.
Hello, Christian. Thank you for having me. Very excited to be here.
Oh, it's fantastic to have you on, Steve. We've known each other for at least 3 years now, right? So first met through Escape the Rat Race.
Yeah, that's right. So I first met you at Escape the Rat Race and was a member of that for a year before joining up with WealthBuilders. Yeah.
Yeah, great. So we are going to run through our recurring revenue roadmap together today, Steve. And you've been with us since the beginning, since we launched as a founder member. So you very clear on the steps that we teach, and going to talk about how things have been working out for you and the business that you've been building. So we'll start with at the beginning, as we do, the roadmap has got 3 stages. So stage 1 is building confidence, stage 2 is building knowledge, and stage 3 is building assets. And each of those stages has got 3 steps. So stage 1 is building confidence, and step 1 at the beginning is all about mindset, Steve. So let's begin with your why. So can you remember, was there a particular catalyst or a point that you can think back to where you said, okay, I need to start thinking about building my wealth?
Absolutely not. I'm one of these people that found it really quite difficult to pull out a single why as to why I'm doing it. A lot of people have sort of things that have gone in their life, or a real passion that they can sort of hang on to and say, that's what I want to dedicate my life to doing. And they have a real drive for doing it. But that was always missing for me. And I think that doing the wealth dynamics was really useful in helping me understand why that was. And I think after doing the wealth dynamics, it identified that I came up very highly on the creativity and sort of mechanics side of things and very low on the other side, which meant that, it explained that I like new ideas and I like getting my hands dirty and doing them myself, which was sort of part of the reasoning why there's no why. I like change. I like to follow whatever's interesting at the time. So to pick one thing for life that I'm going to do for life is just alien to me. And I'm not sure how many other people who score highly on the creative side of things feel about that, but it's sort of opened my eyes to, well, this is why, because as soon as I choose one thing, a month later it will change. My wishes and desires will change. So doing wealth dynamics really opened my eyes to how I worked, and it allowed me to sort of figure out that, well, that is my why, that I like just getting involved with things. I don't want to be locked into a single thing. I want to do a bit of this, a bit of that, and I'm sort of driving towards building a life where that's open to me to sort of get my hands dirty and, stay in flow, as it were, with the things I'm doing.
Yeah. It's so important to really know yourself. And that's all about, the first step there. And just to paint the picture, Steve, kind of tell us, what were you doing at the time that you joined in terms of you working or
So yeah, I had I'm the pretty standard entry, being that I had no real financial wealth experience, and I was just in a full-time job, couple of new kids. So right at the beginning, I've got a 3-year-old now. So right at the beginning, I had a newborn and a 3-year-old, and just living that sort of standard life of married, 2 kids, full-time job, commuting, working 14 hours a day, not getting any time at the end of the day to do much. Having the sort of Fisher Price entry level assets where you've just got, right, I've got a few stocks and shares, I've got a bit of a pension, I've got a house with a mortgage, but nothing that's actually generating me money. It's just the stuff that you pick up along the way. I'd never had any financial training at all, from family or from school. So these are just the things that you sort of absorb from what you should be doing, as opposed to having any plan or strategy as to why you're doing it. So I sort of started at the beginning as sort of your bog standard entry level wealth builder. I'd done all right in life. I had a decent job, but of course it was taking me 14 hours a day. I wasn't really seeing my young kids, and it was as stable as a job could be, which wasn't very stable. And so just to drop it in right at the beginning, I was made redundant back in September, which provides a why quite quickly. Now you've got mouths to feed, which really sharpens your focus on doing these things, and has really helped me get going.
And as we mentioned, you were a founder member. So when we set up the Wealth Builders Academy, and it was obviously called a foundation program back in 2019, what was it in particular that attracted you to join?
So I'm quite bad at sticking with any kind of plan. So having a structured approach and the steps to follow through and a group of people to keep me accountable was very appealing. I'm not short of ideas. I'm not afraid to get my hands dirty, but I'm the classic DIYer, which was explained to me was a very bad thing to be. And I could agree that it was, but it's hard to fight your internal wiring and unpick this wiring. So having a group that understood that and would slap me back onto the right path through the middle, which was ideal. And the wealth coaches have been fantastic at just sort of keeping me focused and moving step by step forward, as opposed to leaving me to my own devices where I'll disappear off and be doing the latest, greatest thing, and it'll be fantastic. But ultimately, it's a bit counterproductive to where I'm trying to get to. Yeah,
good. Okay, so taking a lot of time there at the beginning to really understand, your strengths and weaknesses, which you've explained there, and Wealth Dynamics helping with that. Some other parts of the stage one is all foundational, which is the debits process, where we ask all of our members just to do a stock take of the ins and outs. And did you manage to find any savings there, Steve?
I did. I love doing the debits process, getting a spreadsheet, filling out all the things that were going out. So you discover all these little things that have added up over time. You've got insurance for the TV set that you don't really need. You've got various subscriptions to magazines that you don't read, and you can just trim all the fat right off. And it also gives you a renewed confidence when you're negotiating with your various utilities, that I'm not gonna take any of this faffing around from Virgin Media or Vodafone as they try and pump up the price by 15% as soon as you sign a contract. You're fully aware of what it means now when these things happen. So you negotiate them with renewed vigor. But the most important thing I learned from that was that the money that you do find and you do save, it's important not to just let that disappear back into the ebb and flow of your finances. Otherwise it will just disappear, or you'll find yourself feeling flush one month and you'll you buy a hot tub for the garden and then spend, add a new charge of 12 months heating for the hot tub. So what I found was that the best thing to do with it was to create a standing order to pay that money straight out into another account. And so I've had that money pooling up, and I've used that money as capital to pay for the business that I've started, that I'm sure we'll discuss.
Yeah, perfect. That's absolutely the way to do it. And the final stage in the foundation before we move on to stage 2 is, of course, putting on a secure roof. And this is really the protection of you and your assets. So how was your roof when you first looked at it, Steve?
I didn't have a roof. It was just rain coming in. It was fairly risky. So I had none of these things in place. Like I said before, there's no real guidance. Unless you take this on as a project, no one really tells you in life. I come from a single parent family, so my mother was just, working 2 jobs, so she didn't retell me. I come from state schools where no one really teaches you about personal finance, and even university and whatnot don't teach you about personal finance unless you do, I guess, a business or economics degree. And that's probably focused on business finance, which you then apply to the lessons of your own life. But there's no real public awareness of how to deal with these things in your life. So it was, having this framework where there's a beginning and end as well of all the things you need to do. It was easy just to move through them. We moved the house into tenants in common, and then got a will put together where the house was protected should one of us pass away, and put into trust. We worked through, got the powers of attorney set up, both health and financial. A lot of mailing back and forth between us and people that we wanted to have the power of attorney, to get their signatures. And that took a while, but it's lovely to have it in place. But the one that sticks with me most is life insurance. Having 2 young children, you don't realise, how important it is to have life insurance until you actually think about it. It comes to mind every time I'm sort of stood in the middle of the road, leaning over a car seat, plugging in my kids' seatbelts with my arse wiggling out into the road, as these cars speed by, and I just think, it's just one distracted driver. It's got to hit the door on the other side as they speed past, and that's me done. So it comes to mind then, and it's also been sort of brought very much to the fore with, in the past year, 3 people in our sort of circle with kids the same age have been struck with cancer, with one of them passing away, leaving an 18-month-old, which is absolutely tragic. But it just goes to show that, these things are random. There's nothing that those people did to deserve or warrant, getting cancer. And, for them to have that is absolutely tragic. But, you can protect your family at least with life insurance. And, I just feel very glad that I have that in place now. It lifts a weight that you didn't know you had, but once it's gone, you sort of feel a lot more confident that you're doing it properly. So I'm sort of, I'm very happy to have the roof in place.
No, thanks for sharing that, Steve. Such an important step, and that kind of finishes off the foundational elements, and then we can move into, I guess, some more exciting stuff, which is building knowledge around the 7 pillars of wealth. So step 4 is what we call assets, and this is where we look at what are those 7 pillars. So when you first joined WealthBuilders, Steve, were any of those pillars active for you, and which ones have you chosen to focus on?
Yes, so when I joined, I had the Fisher Price, my first set of assets, where I had a pension that had been thrust upon me by an employer. I had a house that was mortgaged. I had a few stocks and shares where you've thrown a few spare quid into an ISA, and you've dabbled with that, but you have no strategy behind it. It's just things that you acquire. So I had a few things that I'd done with the money that I had, but there was no strategy behind it or, reason that I was doing it other than, you have an awareness that you need to save for your retirement in some format, and, that these are the standard things to be doing. But of course, they're not quite as they appear. So the pension's just in a scheme where there's, some company taking their slice of it year after year and not really doing anything to aid the performance of that pension. The stocks are just randomly chosen as companies that I thought were decent companies who were having a bit of a dip at the time. And I thought, they'll bounce back from that, so I'll buy low, sell high. But again, no knowledge of this, no education as to what it was. Again, at school, I can tell you Pythagoras' theorem, but we learned nothing about building your own personal finances and how the stock market worked, how to invest your own money, and how to look after your finances. Pretty much your generic level of assets with no strategy behind them, the bog standard ones that people will pick up as they wander through life, but nothing, no brain power applied to that.
So which of the pillars, once you understood the 7 different ways, did you decide that you were going to focus on?
So after as you mentioned before, I've worked with you in the past. I've always had a entrepreneurial streak and wanted to set up a business, but I've always been a web developer. So my business training hasn't quite been there. And what I think is the next greatest and latest thing doesn't necessarily work as a business. So from working with you guys, it quickly became apparent that IP was my strongest suit. I could package up this 20 years of experience and produce a product which was ideal for a niche market. I've been working with sort of large companies such as Waitrose and Sainsbury's for a long time, and the job that I'd had there was to build systems which could be used by anybody, which meant as long as I picked the right niche, I'd be able to build a product which, you know, could be used by someone off the street, as it were, which was basically our remit for these large companies, because they just had so many people coming and going that requiring a learning curve or any kind of education to use the system just wasn't really a viable thing. They had thousands of people coming, going, and churning months on. So IP became the first thing that really stood out as something that I could do. I had a pension, but it wasn't a £400,000 pension that could instantly start generating me that, the level of wealth that made it the most interesting pillar. So yeah, IP was the one that was for me.
Okay, so kind of combination of the IP pillar and the business pillar there, and then the next step is leverage, and that's the key to wealth building. So once you've decided on the pillars that you feel the kind of right fit, then looking at where are your points of leverage, and we know there's 5 types of leverage, and there's financial leverage, intellectual leverage, relationships, systems, and time. So which areas of leverage would you say you've used the most?
Well, there's always you sort of pull a little bit from each one. So financial, I'd saved up some money after the debits, a bit of cash to start buying the assets that I'd need to create the new business. Obviously, you can't do everything yourself, so you need to have a bit of money behind you to buy the things that you need and set it up correctly so that you don't have to keep going back and fix a leaky ship, as it were. You can actually get proper things in place from the outset. IP, which is the one I'm leveraging the most. Like I said, I've got a lot of experience in web development, so it became the obvious thing that why am I trying to invent a new wheel here? And just take what I know and use that. It's been highly sought after by these companies, and I can repackage it and just create a product for myself. So that's where I've gone. Relationships. It quickly became clear that the network that I had was entirely useless for what I was trying to do. This is a network of developers and people within large corporations. So the area that I wanted to work with, the niche I wanted to work within, was property. So WealthBuilders conveniently provided me with a massive network of people, trusted people that I could tap into to help me develop that product. I bought all the technical knowledge, but what I was lacking was, hands-on, real-world experience of the property industry. So through WealthBuilders, I've been able to work with property coaches who've sort of taught me through how investment works, all the things that investors need to see, how to satisfy investor needs. I've been able to work with developers, property developers, and investors to beta test the product and to sort of cut out the fat and add in the things that they actually need, because creating a product from my own imagination, there was a lot of things that I thought were very important, but in the end it was overkill. And so I could remove those to simplify it and to streamline it and to put emphasis on the things that they do actually need. So much like with Microsoft Word, where the product gets bloated quickly and no one's ever using mail merge and all of these things, I could cut out those things that people don't need, and I could put real emphasis on the things that they do need, such as having a system that managed their social media and pushed out their updates across all of their platforms, and having a system that would allow them to build a mailing list and then mail out to that mailing list with their latest updates and things of this nature, rather than stuff they didn't need. And on top of that, WealthBuilders, is actually providing me with referrals. So I've actually got business in from WealthBuilders and have happy clients that I'm working with from the community. So that's been great as well. It's starting to pay for itself, which is always handy.
Great examples of bringing leverage into play there, systems and time, I suppose. You mentioned, obviously, initially you were working long hours, you were commuting every day, you had young children to look after. Obviously, redundancy came along towards the end of last year, Steve. That gave you a lot more time, right? So how has that allowed you to put that?
Yeah, so, a full-time job, as I mentioned, was taking up 14 hours a day, which really slows your progress down as everyone probably knows, and takes a lot of your energy just sort of doing that 5 days a week. But working from home and redundant. So I had the option of redundancy or redeployment, but I thought I was in a position to take the redundancy package and the gap that gave me, where it would pay my bills for a while. I was in a position to right, we'll take that. This is the opportunity. This is life. This is life opening up now. This is my shot. So I took redundancy. It's kind of like when the general sends his boats to the beach and then burns the boats behind him. There's no going back now. We're on the beach. It's only going forward. There's only forward to go. So I got had some money to give me some breathing room to do this. I now had the time to do it, and I took that on. I forgot what the question was.
It was all about time leverage. So yes, having more time has really accelerated now, allowing you. So let's give the business a quick plug then, Steve. So what is the name of your business?
So the business that I built is called propertyportfolio.co.uk, and it's all about helping property professionals win investment and grow their portfolio. It's designed to allow them to tell the story behind their business, to allow investors to become familiar with them and build trust, and essentially just raise their profile amongst the investment community and help them win the investment that they need to grow. Yeah,
beautiful looking websites. Very, very, very easy to upload and update. So propertyportfolio.co.uk. Go and check that out and get in touch with Steve.
Yeah, that's been a real key thing that people have told me, that they need these things easy to update. So I've stripped out all the need for any coding or anything like that. And if you can use Facebook, you can use this system to publish a website within a week.
All right. So that covers off stage 2, which is all about building the knowledge, finding where your leverage is, and then really getting clear on the strategy. And the final stage of the roadmap, Steve, as you know, is all about building assets. So this is where we teach the process of turning the wheel of wealth. So the wheel of wealth is a really vital step in the whole wealth building process, because when you understand how the wheel works, you can apply that to any strategy, any pillar, any asset really. And if we apply the wheel of wealth, Steve, to your business then, so it consists of education, support, connections, due diligence, and guided action. So, the education, obviously you've talked about gaining that through the WealthBuilders program. Support comes from your coach, right? So every month you have a one-to-one call with your wealth coach. So, how has that helped you to focus by having someone there who's already kind of walked the path and can guide you from making mistakes?
Yeah, so that's been really, really good. So I work with Carol Robinson, and she essentially helps me stay on the path, which is the biggest issue I have. There's no real tasks that are a problem for me. It's more about culling away the ideas that I have that don't move me closer towards the destination, because left to my own devices, I'll have a million ideas. I want to get started on them straight away, but that doesn't necessarily help me or the clients get to achieve the goals that we're looking to achieve. So Carol, I speak to every month, and she listens to me waffle on a bit, and then she goes, right, but what you're trying to do is this. And so how does that move you closer to this? And I go, well, it doesn't. And she says, well, can we put that to the side for the moment and come back to that later? And I say, yes. And then we focus on the things that will move me forward, which is fine as well, because I'll have a million ideas of how to do that. But she basically, it's basically like a school teacher, just, with a cane, just rapping me on the knuckles every time I try and wander or daydream about what needs to be done next. She keeps pulling me back to that rope that runs through the middle. I have to keep pulling myself along that rope rather than going off on a wander.
Yeah, I love that analogy. And Carol's such a great coach. And I'm so pleased that you've got built up that strong relationship together there. So focusing, turning the wheel. So as we said, the wheel consists of, several stages there. The final part of the wheel is obviously guided action. So once you've got the support in place, you've made the connections through the community, as you mentioned, done your due diligence. So making sure the rules and regulations are around everything that you're doing. Then you've got to take guided action, right? Guided action should end up in some kind of results. So what are those results for you, Steve?
Well, before we do that, I just want to mention, as far as education goes, one of the things that was really helpful was the Enterprise Club that Kevin ran. And he basically gave me the 3 rules that I need to engrave upon any business that I'm setting up so that it has a future. So as far as results go, that's one of the strongest things about the position I'm in now, is that the business does fulfill those three roles. It's niched, which means that I can go deeper and deeper into that niche and build a tool that's actually quite unique to the need of property developers and property investors. And hopefully that, helps it beat any competition, because anyone doing any kind of service that's generic around this just isn't going to be able to provide the depth of property relevant things that I can provide. It's built around a recurring subscription model, which means that I can look after these clients. It's not just they give me some money, I build them something, wham bam, thank you ma'am, and I never speak to them again. Every month I can now provide resources to them and be available to handhold them and guide them through to help them get things running. They're never alone. If there's any questions, we've got that relationship that's ongoing, so I can always help them. And the third thing Kevin taught me was build it so that you can remove yourself from the process. And one of the problems I had before this was I built this all-seeing, all-dancing solution that really required me to be the font of all truth with it. And I wouldn't have been able to onboard people to support me with that, wouldn't have been able to onboard a team very easily. So when I've done version 2, it's now built in a way that I can get endless amounts of people to help me and make sure that the client's needs are just met, by the team around me, rather than just having me as the point of failure. So, the business is built around these three things that I learned in Enterprise Club. And as I mentioned before, I've had businesses that have sort of come and go because they just didn't have the proper structure. So one of the results is that this business I have now is built a lot better from a business perspective, rather than just, I've built a brilliant product that I think people want. It's like, right, there's actually a business behind it now that will satisfy the needs of the clients, rather than the things that have popped out of my head as dreams that they'll want. It's like, right, we've actually got a proper business now. And the other thing that I did was a business validation course with you, Christian. And that really helped me analyze what the business was about, who it was for, and take it away from what I thought it should be and help it become what the customers thought it should be, what they actually needed. And that's not about guessing what they need. That's about speaking to the customers and finding out what it is that they actually need. So I identified who I thought was my ideal customer, and then I've spoken to several people from the community who fit that profile, and what it is that they want, what it is that they don't want, the real areas that matter to them, and the things that just basically make them glaze over and confuse them, and we don't need that. So it's really helped me make the business a lot more viable. So yeah, that's good.
Now there's many types of results. More confidence, just as you say, more structure, and of course we want to measure the thermometer, right? So the goal is always to start increasing recurring income. And you're still at beta stage, really, just launched with the business, but you've now got paying clients and recurring income coming in, Steve.
That's right. Like you say, it's still early days, but I do have 5 clients, and that's putting money onto the thermometer, and that's recurring every month. So it's sort of a proof of concept that this works, and I just need to ramp it up now. Happy with the business model, happy with the product. The customers are happy. Now it's just a matter of helping more people get their raise their profile online by using this system.
Yeah, and how confident do you feel, Steve, that obviously now you're on the right track, that you will hit your security level, in the coming months or year?
Yeah, all the pieces are there. So, the fact that I've got 5 paying customers who are all happy is the proof of concept. It's working for them. There's no reason why that can't be 500 customers with the way that I've built it. It's a platform rather than a service that needs people to spend lots and lots of time on. So it's something that, we can get going really quickly for people. And once they're up and running, it all looks after itself. So
yeah, so excited to see that building. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that it's been a battle to get there. What with building the product, refining the product, and fighting against my own inclinations to tinker, tweak, start over again, rebuild it, and to do all these things. So I've been a slow burner, But I've always been there in the background. I've always followed all of the Wealth Builders calls and things like that. I haven't been so great at filling in the paperwork, I'll admit.
No, but that, and that, this is what I like about the conversation, Steve, is, it's just real, right? It's not glossing over. This is the reality. Business isn't easy. You try things, they don't work. You try things again, you get a little bit better, you keep refining. And that doesn't happen overnight. That can take a little while.
Yeah, that's the reality of it. All the stories you get about business are the ones where it's, someone's done something and it sounds like it's taken off overnight and it's fantastic. And, they've hit the nail on the head with their first try. And then all of a sudden, they're a star business person. But the reality is, it takes a bit longer. You have to actually work with other people to find out what it is that's needed. If you're just guessing what they need and then expect that to fly, then it's not really the way it works. You actually have to work with people to figure out what is actually needed.
Yeah, you've got to spot those problems and then solve them. Okay, so pretty much there with the roadmap, Steve. So, obviously the final step is all about accelerators. This is really looking into the future and repeating that process of turning the wheel of wealth and maybe adding new pillars as you go. So for you, Steve, what do you see as being key to helping you continue to stay focused and taking those necessary steps to reach your own financial goals?
So with regards to staying focused, I'm very focused. What with, like I said, mouths to feed, it really sharpens what you're doing at the point of what you're doing it. So the plan's quite clear, really. I'm going to focus on this business until the security level is, there's no time to deviate now. It's focus on that one thing until I reach the security level. But the path after that, there's quite a natural progression. I'll be working with a number of property developers and investors at that point, sort of have seeded around the investment community the things that I'm doing. And so I'll move on to SaaS as a second pillar because, like I say, I should bring that money that I have in the pension into play. So that'll be the second thing that I'm looking to do. And then hopefully move into property myself, with this network of people that I've built, because that's one of the great things about the business that I'm building is that I have contacts now to hundreds of people in the property industry. So should I want to start any other strategies, you can just reach out to all these people. And it's the same with the clients. You can network them together. If they need any help with anything, there's other people I'm working with who are doing just that. So we can build this community of people who know what they're doing and have all the contacts that you need. So it's sort of a natural evolution that I would move into that myself.
Yeah. No, fantastic. Steve, really, really appreciate you sharing your story with us today. Wishing you all the best of luck. I know propertyportfolio.co.uk is going to be a massive hit. So, look forward to catching up again soon.
And thank you for all your guys' help with it along the way so far.
Right, always lots of fun catching up with Steve there, and he had lots to say. So we'll be pulling out those lessons in a second, Kevin. Before we do that, let's pull out one of our latest reviews from Trustpilot in the last 7 days. And I've got one from David here who says, listen and learn or just remind yourself. Great podcast, Chris and Kevin. Certainly a few things I have got to get around to. Good to listen and remind yourself of what you are trying to achieve and where you are on the roadmap, even for those of us who have been on the road for a few years. Thanks again.
Well, that's a good point, because sometimes to know something, but not to follow up and do is really not to know in the first place, because the whole point of this is wealth comes from taking action, not from knowing that action needs to be taken. And certainly that came out loud and clear with Steve, didn't it? With probably the area which people struggle with the most to get done. They always say, I'll get round to it. I don't know about you, Chris, but I don't know what a round to it is. What does it look like? It's a weird thing getting round to it. And the getting round to it for most people is taking care of the roof. But I think Steve had some poignant examples of him in his life, while that peace of mind was so critical for him, wasn't it, really?
Yes. Unfortunate circumstances there that just kind of really hit home the importance. And for Steve, obviously with 2 young children, putting life insurance in place has given him that peace of mind, along with the wills and the other aspects of the roof, which obviously we've covered in previous episodes. So that was a great element to get done early on in the process, along with debits. Really smart to find those savings, but then put them into a business account to kind of use as seed capital for the new project he was working on.
Yeah, well, one of the reasons why people sometimes will forgive themselves for not starting wealth is they don't have enough capital. We hear that, don't we? And when people are thinking about, should I choose wealth or should I not? Or I don't have enough capital, they'll kind of give themselves a false reason not to get started. But even just being in the program and taking care of debits, which we must have covered dozens of times now, Chris, that place of taking stock of what you've got and saving money, but not just saving it, but putting that money to work. And by putting the money to work in a business, and of course, he'd already invested some of his time and money with ourselves. And one of the things I'm very proud about, Chris, is he took part in the Enterprise Club, which is part of the Wealth Builder Academy that helps aspiring business owners who are focusing on the business pillar, not the property pillar or the investment pillar specifically, but the business pillar, to focus in on the key areas, having already taken stock of the fact that he was bringing his existing web skills to the table. So he wasn't starting from scratch. He was looking at what his skills were and putting them to good use once he discovered, which he hadn't, once he discovered the 3 key principles that you really need to think about when putting into a business that will leave you feeling wealthy, not leave you feeling weary. Most people get trapped by the business and the business kind of runs them. They don't own the business. So shall I share those 3 lessons, Chris?
Yes, please do.
All right. So the 3 key things we teach in the Enterprise Club, how to build a business to create wealth. Number 1, find a niche. Find a really, really good niche that you can be outstanding at. And he discovered one, didn't he? With especially with all of his exposure in property.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, he mentioned the connections there. And certainly within Wealth Builders Network, we have many people in property, many people investing, lending, wanting to attract third-party sort of joint venture finance. And that was perfect for Steve. He could really understand the challenges, the problems, and then build something to solve them.
And then the second area is, how do you turn the supply of the service or the product that you're delivering and the solution that you found, how do you deliver that in a way that constantly creates value so you can get a constant supply of recurring income? So not trading time for money, not trading activity for money or service for money, but how do you trade those things to get a recurring revenue? And the reason why that's important is it focuses you on providing a recurring value. Because if you don't provide that recurring value, people will disinclined to reinvest or repurchase from you. So the opportunity is, once you learn that, you can find a way that keeps you on your toes and create outstanding value. And I think he's done that as well. He's tested that really, really well, and now got a subscription going for people, not just to get the service that he provides, which is help people look great when it comes to attracting private investors, but also the maintenance they need to keep it updated, to keep the website looking fresh, to keep the information looking fresh, to update it when they do new projects. A really, really clever way to create a subscription model.
Yeah. And then obviously the third point, Kevin, he's taken that to heart as well, because he's built it in such a way that that business can work without him.
Well, that's right. They're my 3 key points, Chris, but if you want to steal one, that's good. That's good plagiarism. You're welcome to it. That's a good point. You need the business to be able to run without you, not necessarily to start. You've got to put your heart and soul into it, because you've got to know what needs to be systemized. But once you've worked that out, then systemizing your business so it can run basically almost completely without you, and ideally completely without you at some point, then you've got yourself a nice 3-pin plug, like your power socket of a fantastic wealth building business. So creating the niche, being outstanding in that niche, as I said, then making a recurring income as your offering, and then having that business capable at some point to work without you delivering that.
Yeah. And I think a really important point, and, Steve recognizes this as well, is that, sometimes it takes time. And Steve has taken a little bit of time to find the right idea, and that's okay. It doesn't always come straight away, and sometimes you've got to make a few mistakes in order to learn. But Steve now is on the right track, and the great thing is that he is fully confident. Now he's got some paying customers. Now he's validated his idea that he can pretty quickly now escalate and scale that up.
Yeah, and it's a really important point, Chris, particularly in, I said it early on that I'm so in admiration of those Wealth Builder new members who've taken the courage. It does take courage, because for a while you're uncomfortable, for a while you're doubting yourself, for a while you may be even scared a little bit, right? But, if you make a mistake or two, you can doubt yourself. But when you're surrounded by a community, not just of the coaches, but the community around you, and of course we dive in to help people when we can, Chris, if they're getting stuck, don't we? Then the whole point then is, even if you make a mistake, you make a learning. So you don't lose when you make a mistake, as long as you gain from the lesson. And this is the key point. And it doesn't matter how long it takes, because every time you change something, you're going to get better. You'll learn from the mistake, you move forward. And everybody does. It's difficult, though, if you're on your own, because you've got nobody to share the mistakes with, nobody to pick you up if you're feeling a bit down because oh no, I've made another mistake. All those sorts of things will happen in business, particularly if you don't have a path to run on. And, we helped him there, didn't we, with that roadmap, and you taught him how to evaluate his business model, all of these good things that on your own, you don't necessarily get them done that way. So that's the reason why I think it's helped Steve, and it would have taken him even longer had he not had the support environment around him.
Yeah. So we've obviously been talking through the roadmap today. And if you kind of wondering what does the roadmap look like, then you can download a copy for yourself. Head to wealthbuilders.co.uk/roadmap. And if you weren't able to join Kevin and myself on last week's webinar, where we brought it up on screen, we brought some of our members on, and we talked about how we help people go from financial insecurity through to financial independence within 5 years, then drop us a message. Send us an email, hello@wealthbuilders.co.uk, and we'll send you a copy of that recording.
Yeah, perfect. So looking forward to the next episode, Chris, where we'll be sharing even more lessons. So any ideas on what we talk about next?
I think we're on the property pillar next. So we're looking at some specific strategies that can help people to build more wealth.
There you go. There's so many strategies in property, and of course it's a very popular one. So look forward to that, Chris. And until then, my friend, see ya.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget that we are constantly updating our resources inside the Wealth Builders membership site to help you create, build, and protect your wealth. Head over to wealthbuilders.co.uk/membership right now for free access. That's wealthbuilders.co.uk/membership.